3 a.m., she walked alone, but what he whispered made her freeze in terror never told. The clock struck 3, slicing through the thick night air, where shadows danced like phantoms in the dimly lit street. Claire felt the cold grip of unease as she pushed the door open, the creak echoing through the stillness. She shouldn't have been out here alone, not at this hour. The streetlights flickered, their light barely piercing the suffocating darkness that wrapped around her. With each step, her heart thundered against her chest, a primal drum echoing her instincts to flee. Then, from the corner of her eye, something shivered in the depths of the alleyway, a flash of white, moving just out of sight. Claire's breath hitched, mouth drying up like a sponge under the sun. She squinted, straining her ears, the night suddenly feeling too quiet, weighted with the unknown. A stray cat skittered past, and a trash can clattered, but there was something else, something worse lurking in the silence. Claire moved forward, her legs feeling like lead. Each footfall left her feeling more exposed, as if the air itself was alive, watching her. Then she heard it, a whisper, soft yet sharp enough to prick her skin. "Help me!" It chilled her to the bone. Who was there? And what kind of help did they need? Her mind raced with possibilities, panic clawed at her throat. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The whisper hung in the air, jagged and raw, sending chills down Claire's spine. She halted, frozen, a lump swelling in her throat as dread spread through her veins. Her instinct screamed for her to run, but she was paralyzed, caught on the razor's edge between fear and curiosity. The darkness around her seemed to thicken, wrapping her in a cold embrace, both inviting and threatening. She took a breath, willing herself to move toward the noise, the shadow, the unknown that called out like an aching heart. But as she stepped closer, she could swear she heard a low chuckle, and suddenly, the alley felt less like a place of danger and more like a mouth poised to swallow her whole. The edge of fear cranked up a notch, desperation clawing at her senses. What was lurking in the dark? Were those whispers a plea, or a trap? With her heart pounding in her ears, she took a single step towards the abyss of that alley, knowing she was on the brink of something she couldn't even begin to fathom. The night was alive with secrets, and she was about to uncover one that would change everything. Claire felt the chills seep deeper into her bones as she edged towards the source of the whisper. It wasn't just a plea, it was an invitation laced with something sinister. The darkness in the alley seemed to pulse, drawing her in, every ounce of rational thought urging her to turn back. But she was compelled. Curiosity had a tight grip on her heart. "Help me!" The voice, though muffled, sounded desperate. It sent a ripple of fear through her. What if someone was hurt? What if it was a trap? She could hear her own breathing, short and panicked, drowning out all other sounds. The alley narrowed, walls looming high on either side, cloaking her in deeper shadows. Claire squinted into the darkness, trying to make out any shapes. A figure seemed to emerge, slumped against the brick wall, the faint flickering streetlights catching flashes of white fabric. Was it a person? Please. The voice was clearer now, a woman's voice, raw, trembling. It was a sound woven with fear and urgency that twisted Claire's gut. "I can't move. They're coming for me." One more step, and she felt her pulse race. The hairs on her arms stood on end as dread coiled in her stomach. What if they were real? What if the danger was already here, lurking just out of her sight? Help! It was more of a groan this time, desperate weakness mixed with horror. "Who's there?" Claire called, her voice wavering. Instead of a response, the alley seemed to hold its breath, silence hanging like a thick fog. The figure shifted, and Claire squinted harder, trying to glean some detail. Was it a woman? The patchy blue light revealed her disheveled hair and torn clothing, the kind of tattered appearance that sent alarm signals racing through Claire's mind. "I need help," the figure managed, trembling. You have to get me out of here before they come back. Despite the fear thrumming inside her, compassion surged in Claire. Okay, hold on. I'm coming. She took another step, brain racing as she calculated the dangers around her, the possibility of a trap, the silhouette threatening to swallow her whole. Yet, there was a flicker of determination. As Claire approached, the woman's features became more defined, eyes wide and pleading, a gash across her cheek. The sight sent a jolt through Claire's chest. But when she reached out, just an arm's length away, the woman's face shifted. Shadow dove into her expression, twisting into something darker, her lips curling into a smirk. You should have listened, she whispered, and a tremor of horror shot through Claire. The moment lingered, time stretching agonizingly as uncertainty seeped into the air. Why had the warmth turned cold? Without warning, the sound of footsteps echoed in the alley, heavy and deliberate. Claire's heart raced as she turned and sprinted back to the mouth of the passage, the weight of unseen eyes boring into her. But then a hand gripped her arm. The fear intensified. You need to run. The voice hissed, urgency cracking through the facade. What's happening? Claire gasped, eyes darting to the shadows behind her. Every instinct screamed for her to get away, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was entwined in something dark and unspeakable. As she pulled free, the voice echoed behind her, you can't escape them. They'll find you. Her breath hitched, and she stumbled back into the street, adrenaline surging through her. The night had morphed into a living nightmare, a world where every shadow threatened to break free. But there was that voice still invading her thoughts. Was it a warning, or a curse? Claire looked back to the alley, the flickering light dimming as if swallowing whatever secrets lay within. She needed to find out what they were before it was too late. But who were they, and what were they after? The night had only just begun to reveal its horrors, and Claire was left wondering if running was the right choice or if facing the dread was the only way to survive. Claire stumbled back onto the street, gasping for air as the night closed in around her. The cool night breeze felt like an icy hand against her skin, but it was nothing compared to the fire of fear roaring in her chest. Every muscle in her body screamed for her to run, yet her mind lingered on the figure in the alley. What just happened? She whispered to herself, clenching her fists to steady her shaking hands. Had the woman really needed help? Or was she part of something more sinister? The shadowy laughter echoed in her ears, and she shut her eyes tight, trying to shut out the ghost of that smirk. She took a shaky step away from the alley, peering over her shoulder in a desperate hope that the darkness was swallowed by the streetlight's glow. Nothing stirred, but the moment stretched like an elastic band about to snap. With every heartbeat, she felt the invisible grasp of dread tighten around her, urging her to flee. Then a flicker of movement caught her eye from the corner of her gaze. It was a figure peering from the shadows on the opposite side of the street. Claire's blood turned to ice. Was this another trap? The figure stepped into the light, revealing a tall man with a gaunt face and hollowed eyes. His clothes hung loosely on him, giving him an almost spectral appearance. Swallowed by a thick overcoat, he looked as if he had crawled right out of the depths of the earth. Claire, he called softly, his voice ricocheting through her like a bullet. How do you know my name? She took a step back, hand instinctively hovering over her cell phone. I know things, he replied, each word slipping out with a chilling calmness. Like the fact that you just met someone who isn't what she seems. Claire's heart raced. Who are you? I'm someone who can help you. But right now, you need to listen. What do you know about that woman? Her voice shook, conviction clashing with fear. Everything. Including why her whispers are dangerous. He leaned forward, and Claire could see the flicker of urgency in his eyes. You don't have much time. They're looking for you. Who? Claire barked. Who's looking for me? What do you want? He straightened, dark eyes flashing with intensity. There's no time to explain. You must trust me, but trust is not free. You have to make a choice, for the road ahead is lined with shadows. Claire's breath hitched as fragments of panic collided in her mind. What are you talking about? I can't trust you. Not after everything, the man interrupted, raising a hand. You think the choice is yours to make? You're already tangled in this web. It's too late to go back. The shadows seemed to shiver in response, whispering and muttering with renewed ferocity. Claire caught sight of movement again, small figures darting about, fleeting glimpses that made her blood run cold. They're here, she breathed, her voice barely audible. Run! He snapped, shoving her toward the street. Without thinking, Claire turned and bolted, adrenaline flooding her veins. Her legs carried her down the pavement as the sounds of footsteps echoed behind her, harsh, relentless, growing louder every second. She did not look back, but fear traced icy fingers down her spine. As she raced away, Claire couldn't shake the feeling of something looming just behind her, watching, waiting, eager. Something terrible was unfolding, and her instinct screamed for her to uncover the truth. Where do I go? She thought, then she spotted a faint glow up ahead, a small diner glowing like a beacon in the dark. If she could just make it there. Suddenly, a voice called from the shadows, icy and mocking, "You can't hide forever, Claire." She skidded to a stop, heart pounding as realization settled in. They were close. Too close. With a deep breath, she forced herself to press on toward the diner, feeling the weight of the night pressing down harder than ever before. But she had a choice to make. Face the threat lurking behind, or lock herself away inside the fragile sanctuary of light. Some choices, however, come with consequences. As Claire burst through the diner doors, the faint scent of coffee and grease felt comforting, yet underlying it was the sharp tang of unease. This place was not the refuge she imagined. The diner's patrons turned to stare at her, eyes wide with shock and intrigue. But one thing froze her in place, a figure seated in the back corner, face obscured by shadows, grinning as if he knew the secrets of the dark. What now? She thought, realizing that the danger wasn't behind her anymore. It had followed her inside. What had she gotten herself into? The night was far from over, and the answers she sought were wrapped in darkness. Would she unravel the hidden truths, or would the shadows take her first? Claire's heart pounded as she stood in the neon-lit diner, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. The warm glow of the overhead lights seemed like a cruel joke against the chill washing over her. The air felt electric, buzzing with unspoken tension as the patrons turned to her with icy stares. It was a strange mix of fascination and fear, like they were caught in a frozen moment of disbelief. The figure in the corner didn't help. He leaned back, shadows cloaking his features, but Claire could still make out that wicked smile spreading across his face. The glint in his eyes sent a shiver down her spine, and for a moment, she could feel the weight of his gaze boring deep into her thoughts, reading her fears. Why are you looking at me like that? Claire's voice came out harsher than she meant, breaking the stillness around her. The warmth of the diner felt like a false safety as she forced herself to step farther inside, glancing around for a place to hide. There were only a few booths occupied, older couples and tired travelers, but they seemed entirely engrossed in their plates, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. Relax, the man in the corner finally said, his voice smooth like honey, holding a sinister undertone. You're safe here for now. Safe? Claire echoed, disbelief creeping into her tone. You think I'm safe? He cut her off, waving a hand dismissively. You don't know what's out there, Claire. It's not just the woman you stumbled upon. This goes deeper than you can imagine. His eyes narrowed, his expression suddenly serious. You've stepped into something dangerous. Every instinct in Claire urged her to run, but her feet felt chained to the ground. All the fear she had pushed down began to swell, clawing at her chest. What are you talking about? Who are you? I'm the one who can help you figure it out. But first, you need to understand something. You remarked the moment you listened to her, he said, his tone now grave. You didn't just see a shadow, you made a choice to engage with the darkness. What do you mean? She was confused, trying to connect the disjointed pieces of his words. The whispers, Claire. They call to those in despair, and now you're on their radar. They come for what you possess, what she thought you could give. Possess? I don't have anything. Claire felt panic clawing at her throat, but his eyes only drilled deeper into hers, and she could see the truth reflected back. "Oh, but you do." He leaned forward, a low intensity radiating from him. "You hold the keys, Claire. Memories, fears, insecurities, they're all bait for them. They want to feed off your pain." Claire shook her head, her thoughts a chaotic whirl. She could feel the shadows from outside creeping closer, like a cold fog slowly engulfing the diner, suffocating her with dread. "Why should I trust you?" she sputtered, the words slipping through her like grains of sand. "Because you have no choice." His voice was calm, but the air between them crackled with tension. "You can either embrace the night or let it consume you. But first, you need to know who you're dealing with." Claire felt a knot forming in her stomach. Questions swirled, threatening to suffocate her. But all she could muster was a cautious, "Who?" Suddenly, the front doors of the diner burst open with a clang, and a cold gust of wind swept through, extinguishing the warmth. Claire's heart sank as shadows poured in, dark figures lurking at the threshold. They enveloped the space, blocking out the flickering neon lights, like hungry wolves looking for prey. The patrons gasped, their faces draining of color, and Claire instinctively took a step back toward the man in the corner. "What do I do?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Stand your ground," he replied, eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Whatever you do, don't show fear." But as the figures advanced, the cold seeped deeper into her bones, and Claire felt something primordial rising, a deep-seated fear that threatened to consume her whole. She was trapped in a nightmare, with no clear way out. As the shadows enveloped her, she realized she was facing the very essence of her fears. But were they coming for her, or were they here to unveil something much darker? What was hidden inside her that they sought? It felt like the beginning of everything unraveling, and she had to decide, would she confront her fears, or let them shatter her will entirely? In that clash of choices, she understood the true battle had only just begun. What would dawn reveal when the shadows trembled? The shadows creeped closer, their forms shifting and undulating like a living darkness, heavy with intent. Panic surged through Claire as she backed into the corner of the diner, her heart racing faster than ever before. Clenching her fists, she could feel the frigid air wrapping around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. "Remember what I said," the man in the corner urged. His voice was a fierce whisper, like an anchor in the maelstrom. "You have to hold on to your strength." The nearest shadow flickered, revealing fierce eyes that glowed with a hunger she couldn't comprehend. An echo of distant laughter reverberated in her mind, teasing, like a cruel melody that promised chaos. "Who are you?" Claire's voice trembled, fighting against the tide of fear. "What do you want?" She forced herself to look directly at the shadow, desperate for any sign of clarity amidst the chaos. The figure stepped forward, sharp features now illuminated in the diner's flickering lights. It was a woman, her face stark against the dimness, eyes as dark as the void around her. "You have something we want, Claire. Something precious." A wave of bile rose in Claire's throat. "I don't have anything. Just leave me alone." She could feel the panic creeping up, threatening to spill over. "Ah, but you do," the woman said, her laughter echoing in Claire's ears, taunting and hypnotic. "You hold the weight of the past, the shadows of your fears. And those, they are exquisite." The tension in the room thickened, as if the very atmosphere was charged with desperation. The other patrons, once frozen in terror, began to murmur amongst themselves. Claire caught snippets of their hushed voices, words like cursed, lost, and damned echoed through the air. They were threading stories of their own fears into the fabric of the place, feeding something primal. "Your darkness calls to ours," the man in the corner said, cutting through the atmosphere with forceful clarity. "You did not just hear the whispers, you answered them. It's too late now. You must decide how to face it." The shadows tightened their grip, inching forward, hungry and expectant. Claire could feel them probing her mind, whispering her deepest insecurities and regrets into her ears. They wrapped around her, each one clawing to scratch surface wounds she thought had healed. "No!" Claire shouted, clenching her eyes shut, trying to repel the invasion. But instead, strings of past pains and failures jumped into her consciousness. faces from her past, wounds long neglected. Each shadow tugged at her insides like puppet strings, paralyzing her even more. Embrace them, the woman urged, a smirk curving her lips. Let them guide you. Only then will you learn what true power lies within. A cold shudder raced through Claire. Power? The very thought of tapping into her pain felt like a betrayal, like giving those shadows the victory they craved. Don't listen. The man barked, his voice laced with urgency. You can resist. You must remember who you are. But the shadows danced closer, taunting, eager to consume her resolve. Deep down, Claire felt a spark of defiance flickering, a small part of her that screamed to fight, yet the overwhelming tide of darkness threatened to drown it out. She took a deep breath, steadying herself amidst tumult. No, she declared, forcing her eyes open, meeting the glowing hunger of the shadow's eyes. You want to control me. I will confront this. The shadows hesitated, their advance stalling as she rallied her strength. The man's eyes gleamed, pride glinting behind the fear. That's it, Claire. Fight. This is your battle. But the deepest darkness had yet to reveal itself, and Claire knew the real fight was just beginning. What lay behind the shadows stretched deeper into her psyche than she could fathom, threatening to unravel everything she understood about herself. As the room crackled with unrelenting tension, Claire faced the figures with a resolve she hadn't known she possessed. The first step toward reclaiming her own narrative had been taken, but as she braced herself for the confrontation ahead, one lingering question haunted her: what truths lay hidden in the darkest parts of her mind, and would she be ready to face them? The shadows pulsed, growing darker, heavier. Claire felt their weight pressing against her, dragging her deeper into the abyss of her fears. An icy gust swept through the diner, extinguishing the flickering lights and plunging the room into darkness. Around her, the other patrons remained eerily silent, their faces veiled in obscurity, waiting for the unthinkable. With every heartbeat, Claire felt the pulse of her own past reverberating, threatening to spill out into the open. The laughter of the shadow woman echoed in her mind, sharp and mocking. She could almost see the twisted forms behind the veil, swirling and shifting, waiting for her to falter. You cannot hide from yourself, Claire, the woman taunted. You're never truly alone in the darkness. Get out of my head. Claire screamed, her voice rising above the whispers. She fought against the encroaching fear, pushing back with everything she had. The man in the corner, his face still partially hidden, remained steady, urging her only with his intense gaze. This was her moment, her fight point. One of the shadows lunged at her, its shape grotesque and hungry. As it neared, Claire gasped, an image flickered in her mind: her childhood, her father, the old wooden swing in the yard. Faces she had long buried began to materialize, their eyes filled with sorrow and pain, accusing her of what was left unsaid. She staggered but steadied herself, confronting the onslaught. I want to let you in. You don't get to define me. She roared, her own voice echoing back at her through the oppressive silence. The shadows paused, taken aback by her defiance. The light from some hidden source flickered once more, illuminating the shadows' faces. They were twisted, grotesque reflections of her fears. The woman stepped back now, surprise crossing her features. Resilience, how rare, she said, a hint of respect mingling with disbelief. But don't think for a moment that it will save you. Summoning every ounce of her courage, Claire charged forward, confronting the darkness head-on. No more running, she declared. I refuse to be a prisoner of my past. I will find my truth, even if it terrifies me. The shadows hissed, recoiling as if they had been burned. They faltered, flickering in and out of focus, revealing glimpses of the very pain they thrived on. Heart-wrenching scenes: a mother's disappointment, a friend's betrayal splintered her vision, yet she pressed on. Use that pain, the woman rasped, her voice silky and insidious. Let it fuel you. You've tasted despair. You can wield it as a weapon. In that moment, something cracked inside Claire. She grasped at the memories, feeling each fragment weigh down her heart. Those moments of hurt? They felt as real as ever, but they were also a part of her, unapologetic and fierce. No. She shouted, a strange mixture of resolve and fury energizing her. I will not be weaponized by my suffering. The shadows shrieked, a symphony of agony and rage as they twisted and writhed, retreating just enough for her to catch her breath. But then, the woman's laughter sliced through the air like glass. This is only the beginning, Claire. Suddenly, the diner shook violently, the walls pulsating as if responding to the brewing storm within her. The shadows surged back, emboldened by her resistance. Claire's heart raced. She had pushed them back, but at what cost? Would they return stronger? As the chaos enveloped her, a single thought pierced through the tumult. What would she find when the darkness finally revealed its deepest secrets? And in that moment, Claire knew she wasn't just battling shadows, she was on the verge of uncovering a truth that could redefine everything. Would she be ready for what lay ahead? The shadows fluctuated, their movements frantic and wild. Claire's breath quickened as the walls of the diner morphed around her, an unstoppable tide crashing against the last remnants of her courage. She could sense them watching, waiting like vultures circling in the air above, just waiting for the moment to descend. You're nothing without your past, the shadow woman hissed, her voice echoing from the depths like a lament. Those memories you're so eager to confront? They'll consume you whole. Just like they did before. Claire clenched her fists, fighting the urge to crumble under the weight of the woman's words. Her legs felt like lead, but she steadied herself, drawing from a flicker of an ember glowing within. You're wrong, she shouted, feeling the raw energy of her defiance roll off her tongue. Those memories do not define me. I am stronger than they are. The shadow shrieked, a bone-chilling cacophony that reverberated through her bones. They lunged again, shapes swirling into monstrous forms, each one a visceral reminder of her failures, her regrets. She could see them, the faces of loved ones she'd let down, the unforgiving gaze of her father, the friend turned enemy. Look at them. The shadow woman crowed, a delighted mania filling her voice. These aren't just shadows, Claire, they're pieces of you. Can you face what you've done? Claire shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. I've made mistakes, yes. But I won't be defined by them. Not anymore. In that instant, a surge of defiance claimed control of her body. She turned her gaze inward, desperately grasping at the threads of resilience woven into the core of her being. The shadows recoiled as she focused, each piece unraveling, dissolving into the fragile light she conjured with her will. But the ephemeral victory came at a price. The ground trembled underfoot, and the diner creaked alarmingly as the shadows writhed, frenzied by her refusal to succumb. You cannot fight us, Claire. They cried as their forms shifted again, morphing into a swirling storm of dark energy. You are nothing without us. The lights flickered back on, harsh and glaring, illuminating the faces of the patrons who had watched the spectacle unfold. Their expressions mirrored her own inner turmoil: fear, confusion, pity. Claire's mind raced. She couldn't let them see her fall apart. She couldn't let herself fall apart. Everybody run. A voice finally broke through the silence, the urgency echoing amidst the chaos. But Claire stood frozen. That voice was familiar. She turned her head sharply. The man from the corner, previously quiet, now stood tall, his form marred by shadows clinging to his skin. I know you, Claire, he called out firmly. Remember who you are. Remember that you are not alone. His words ignited a spark, a fleeting warmth that rushed through her. Suddenly, the shadows stumbled, caught off guard by her wavering resolve. She felt their grasp lessen. Join me. The man urged, gesturing toward the shadows. Together, we can shine. We can push them away. But even as she felt the connection forming, Claire knew there was more. There would be consequences. What would joining forces mean? What dark truths would be revealed in the process? The dark laughter of the shadow woman filled the air again, reverberating with implications. You tread a dangerous path, Claire. You don't even know the cost. With a shudder, Claire realized the gravity of her choice. The shadows pulsed around her again, ready to retaliate. Would embracing this unknown help her, or would it lead her deeper into darkness, as adrenaline surged through her veins, she faced the intensity of the moment. Was she ready to embrace what might come next? What would it mean to confront not just her fears, but the truth of who she really was? Claire took a step forward, her decision solidifying. But as she moved toward the man, a spine-chilling whisper caught her ear. You can never escape your past, Claire, and your most haunting truth still waits. What did that whisper mean? And was Claire prepared to seek it out? The moment Claire stepped toward the man, time warped and twisted, each heartbeat a tangible reminder of her impending choice. Shadows danced at her feet, invasive and sneering. They grasped at her ankles, threatening to pull her back into the old familiar darkness. Claire hesitated. The weight of every mistake and every shadow gave her pause. Claire. The man's voice broke through the oppressive air like a lifeline thrown into a storm. You can't turn back now. You have to remember your strength is in confronting your fears. With the clarity of his words, she felt something rise within her, a tide of emotions threatening to drown her. Doubt washed over her, whispering the risks, while hope flickered like a flame. She looked into his eyes, searching for the truth, a truth more powerful than any fear that threatened to embody her. All this time, Claire whispered, her voice trembling. Could I really confront them? Face them? Together? Yes. He urged, his shadowed form glowing brighter in her mind. This is the moment that will define you. You can control them. You can turn their power into your own. Suddenly, the shadows lunged again, a swirling mist of anguish and regret, as if they sensed her doubt and were eager to exploit it. Claire felt a surge of panic rush through her. The cacophony of their cries roared, begging her to succumb. Help me! She cried out, desperate, tears streaking down her cheeks, and then, as if they recognized the requiem within her plea, the shadows paused, recoiling momentarily. For just a breath, silence hung over the diner, broken only by the distant, hollow echoes of the past. With newfound determination, Claire pressed on. I won't live in the shadow of my past anymore. The air thickened, vibrations rippled through the floor, the screams turned into whispers, begging her to reconsider. She raised her chin, boldly staring at the swirling mass. You don't own me. I own my journey, flaws and all. A light sparked around her, radiating warmth and power, and in response, the shadows twisted violently, flickering like a candle caught in the wind. But the darkness wasn't finished. Scornful laughter sliced through her newfound resolve. You think you can banish us? We are part of you, Claire. The shadow woman hissed, her voice dripping with venom. You can't escape the truth that binds you. With every word, Claire felt the tether tighten. What truth? The dark echoes of her childhood? The pain of loss or mistakes? The man stepped closer, now fully embodying the essence of light amidst the chaos. The truth can either shatter you or set you free. Choose your path wisely. Swallowing hard, Claire faced the storm gathering around her. She could almost feel the weight of each regret, each broken moment looming behind her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears like a drum pulling her deeper. Could she really confront them? What would she discover lurking there? Before she could dive deeper into her contemplation, the world around her tilted, and the floor trembled violently under her feet. Shadows rose up suddenly, gripping the edges of her vision, menacing, insatiable. Remember your darkest secret, Claire, the shadow woman crooned, her form shifting to mimic the faces of Claire's past. It walks among us, waiting to be revealed. Fear gripped Claire in a vice. A cold sweat rolled down her back. What secret? What truth was she missing? It was then that she felt the pulse of something deep within her, a flicker, a vision. An image spilled into her mind of a moment she kept buried, a memory she couldn't quite grasp. Panic rose in her throat. What have I done? Are you brave enough to confront what you fear? The voice taunted, swirling around her like smoke. A chilling silence filled the diner as the shadows fed off her fear, and she realized the gravity of what lay ahead. Could she face not only the memories but the core of her existence? With a shuddering breath, Claire made her choice. But as she prepared to leap into the abyss of her past, the shadow woman's voice echoed ominously in her mind. In the end, they may not be the only ones haunting you. What had the shadows unleashed within her? And what chilling revelation awaited as she dove deeper? Claire stood teetering on the precipice of her own dark memories, a whirlwind of emotions roiling inside her. She could feel the heaviness of the shadows, an oppressive weight that sought to crush her spirit. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, urging her toward a truth she'd long buried. The shadow woman's laughter reverberated in her ears, mocking her fears. You think you can outrun the past, the actions that linger like ghosts in the twilight of your memory? No. They are part of you, Claire. Face it. You don't know me. Claire shouted, the words spilling out like a defiant challenge. She glanced at the man beside her. His bright form offered a flicker of strength against the murky tide. The shadows twisted and writhed, forming grotesque shapes that reflected her deepest insecurities. Each jagged face was someone she knew, a friend, a family member, even strangers who had seeped into her psyche and thrived on the decisions she wished she could undo. You've hidden for too long, hissed one shadow, its voice a ghastly echo of her own. What will it take for you to understand? The truth doesn't disappear. It festers. It grows. Are you ready, Claire? Heart racing, she squeezed her eyes shut, trying to shut out their words. But the truth lingered, looming large and menacing like a storm cloud ready to burst. In the depths of her heart, Claire felt the darkness pressing at her chest, demanding admission. With resolve blooming anew, she urged, her eyes open. I will face you. I won't let you control me anymore. The man beside her nodded, radiant confidence spilling from him like a warm wave. You have the strength to turn their whispers into a roar. Embrace it. The shadows recoiled, their forms shivering in the face of her determination. For the first time, Claire felt a rush of power surge through her being. She stepped forward, shaking off the compelling grip of despair that had tethered her for so long. You have no power over me, she declared, voice ringing strong amid the chaos. Without warning, the ground beneath her shifted violently, the diner warping like a reflection in a cracked mirror. She stumbled, heart pounding dangerously. Panic ignited as the shadows surged forward, thrashing violently. Are you ready to remember the night everything changed? The shadow woman's voice swelled with sinister glee, and with each word, memories clawed their way to the surface. Claire winced, fragments bubbling up, echoes of laughter twisted into screams, warmth turning to a devastating chill. Images spun in chaos, an old, weathered house, hushed whispers in the dark, a door creaking open, a silhouette waiting. Her breath caught in her throat, recalling the moment he walked out. Was it an accident, or worse? No. Not that, Claire choked, clutching her head. Anything but that. The shadows enveloped her, their tendrils curling around her limbs as if trying to pull her back into the abyss. Fragile memories fought to be seen, grappling for her attention as darkness began to thrum with energy. Are you brave enough to confront what happened that night? They taunted, their voices now a cacophony of swirling despair. She felt herself waver, hovering on that edge of fear and revelation. What if this was the moment all her buried truths sprung forth, threatening to drown her? No. She shouted, desperation lacing her voice. I refuse to be a prisoner of my past. And then, just as the shadows howled in defiance, it happened. She caught a glimpse of a familiar face among the swirling darkness, a face that sent shivers through her, haunting and yet oddly comforting. Claire. It whispered, a note of sadness laced in the voice. With her heart racing like a wild stallion, Claire asked herself, was it a memory to embrace, or a trap meant to ensnare her in regret? The air crackled with tension, and she felt the ground shift beneath her once more, a promise of change, or perhaps, a dire warning. What awaited her in the depths of those fragile memories? Would the truth emerge from the shadows or strike her down with the force of all she had tried to forget? As the shadows loomed and stories twisted around her, Claire knew she was just beginning to peel back layers of her past. The darkest parts might be where her freedom lay. And just ahead, she could sense another truth lurking, waiting to claw its way to the surface. Claire stood firm amidst the chaos, shadows swirling around her like a tempest of doubt and fear. Images of her past threatened to drown her, pushing and pulling, begging for her to succumb. But deep within, the ember of defiance ignited brighter. She clenched her fists, summoning the strength she had overlooked for too long. "No," she shouted into the growing storm, each syllable heavy with conviction. "You don't get to control me. You don't own my memories." The shadows shuddered at her resolve, flickering uncertainly. Rage mixed with sorrow coursed through her veins, igniting a fire she never knew she possessed. "Face your truth," the man beside her urged, his voice steady and urgent, cutting through the cacophony. He stepped into the fray, the light around him shimmering, entwining with her own resolve. "They feed on your fears, Claire. Let your truth unravel them." At that moment, the ghost of her brother materialized amidst the darkness, his youthful face strained with an unspoken sorrow. "Please, Claire," he murmured, reaching out. "You have to let it go." Desperation clawed at her heart. "No," she cried, feeling the weight of his voice pull her. "You left me. You can't just confront it," he urged, his image flickering, trapped between this world and the next. In that instant, she realized the time had come to face not just him but the entire night that changed everything. Heart racing, Claire squared her shoulders, clinging to the warmth of her resolve. With a surge of courage, she stepped toward her brother's memory. "I loved you, but your shadow cannot consume me." The shadows shrieked, tearing at her sanity as they retaliated, but Claire pushed on, fueled by every moment of joy and pain she had ever felt. "You are not just pain. You are all of me," she shouted, her voice drowning out the cries of despair. Then she channeled her memories, each moment of laughter, friendship, and even her cries of despair, and wove them into a tapestry of strength. The shadows recoiled, thrashing under her newfound light, anguished cries echoing through the diner. "Claire!" the man called, urgency lacing his tone. "Use the truth as your weapon." Nodding fiercely, she focused inward and summoned every pang and ache that had haunted her. "I am my choices. I am my love," she bellowed, her voice powerful and raw. The very air around her shimmered, distorting as if the shadows could no longer withstand the brilliance of her defiance. With each word, she felt the darkness around her tighten, grasping in desperation. Shadows threw themselves at her, but Claire held her ground. She could almost taste the dread dissipating. The laughter became panicked. As the last echoes of despair reverberated, the tear in the shadows widened, gruesome forms slipping through and collapsing into the ground. The ghost of her brother had smiled, fading slowly but proudly. The figure beside her beamed with admiration, and Claire felt as if she stood taller. The diner erupted in light, a burst that sent the remaining shadows shrieking back into the void from which they had come. One by one, they vanished, his expression shifting between relief and awe. Is it over?" Claire whispered, her voice raw but trembling with renewed hope. "Only you can answer that," he replied softly, his form steady, unswayed by the chaos. "You fought bravely, Claire. But true freedom comes only when you let your light shine fully." She breathed deeply, the weight of the past lifting like a fragile mist. The diner quieted, patrons stared wide-eyed, as if witnessing a miracle. The shadow's grip on them had also begun to dissolve, faces lighting with understanding and warmth, echoing Claire's journey. She smiled, heart swelling with pride. "I'm ready to face whatever comes next." With a final breath of ease, Claire turned to leave the diner, the soft morning light spilling through the doorway, warming her skin. She stepped out into a world transformed, vibrant and alive. Her heart beat steadily as dawn broke over the horizon, the shadows receding behind her, no longer tethering her soul. "Goodbye," she whispered. Glancing back, knowing she would carry their memories, but no longer allowing them to define her. With every step, she felt lighter, unshackled from the chains of the past. And as she walked into her new beginning, she felt the weight of those who stood with her, no longer alone against the night. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will be unfolding. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your support is what makes this community thrive. Let's connect and keep the momentum going.